There are places in this world that stop you, not merely because they are beautiful. Beauty, in the realm of architecture, is almost expected. No, these are places that arrest something far deeper. Places that reach into the chest and silence whatever restless thought had been living there a moment before. Places that make the concept of time feel entirely irrelevant. You have seen mansions. You have seen palaces. You have seen the gleaming towers of billionaires and the manicured estates of old European nobility. But what you are about to witness exists outside every category you have ever placed extraordinary architecture into. This is Uzbekistan, and somewhere within its ancient, luminous landscape, a country that was once the pulsing heart of the Silk Road, a land where Alexander the Great paused in wonder and Tamerlane built empires of marble and majesty. There stands a private residence so staggering in its ambition, so breathtaking in its execution, and so profound in its cultural resonance, that the question must be asked with complete sincerity: could any palace on earth truly compare to this?
Unlock the future of luxury living. Subscribe now.
Even before you approach the entrance, the scale of what lies beyond announces itself with quiet authority. The private road leading to the estate is itself a statement, wide enough for 2 luxury vehicles to pass in silence, lined on both sides with ancient olive trees and illuminated after dusk by a series of low, amber-tone pathway lights that cast the most cinematic glow across hand-laid stone pavers. There is a deliberateness to every detail of this approach. Nothing was placed carelessly. Nothing was chosen without intention. The trees were imported, mature and full-crowned, and positioned so that as you move through them, they frame what lies ahead not all at once, but incrementally, a masterclass in architectural suspense. Then the gates appear. They are extraordinary on their own terms. Forged from a combination of tempered black steel and hand-gilded bronze, the gates rise to a height that commands the landscape around them. Their geometry inspired by the intricate lattice patterns of Uzbek Islamic art, the same interlocking forms that grace the ancient madrasas of Samarkand and Bokhara, but here rendered in metal so precisely machined and so flawlessly finished that they feel simultaneously ancient and absolutely contemporary. At their center, the family's emblem is cast in pure gold. Not paint, not gilt, but cast, and it catches the Central Asian sunlight with a warmth that feels almost deliberate, as though the gates were designed to greet the sun specifically. Beyond the gates, the driveway sweeps in a wide, confident arc across a forecourt of rare Portuguese Lias limestone, cream and warm in color, veined with whispers of amber and shell pink. The forecourt is vast, large enough to accommodate a private fleet of vehicles and still feel composed rather than crowded. At its center, a circular reflecting pool of dark, mirror-still water holds a sculptural fountain of extraordinary complexity, 12 columns of white Carrara marble, each carved in bas-relief with scenes from Uzbek history and legend. Rising from the water toward a central apex for which cascades a veil of water, so fine and so perfectly aerated that in the right light, it appears almost like silk falling through the air. And then, beyond the fountain, you see the house. No photograph has ever done it justice. No photograph could, because the impact of this facade is not simply visual. It is spatial, atmospheric, almost gravitational. The mansion stretches across the landscape in a composition of such controlled grandeur that your eye requires several full seconds to travel from one wing to the other. It is not a single structure in the conventional sense. It is a conversation between structures, a central pavilion of breathtaking height flanked by 2 symmetrical wings that extend forward like arms embracing the forecourt, drawing the arriving visitor inward with a sense of welcome that somehow manages to be both intimate and imperial at once. The exterior is clad in a bespoke combination of hand-carved travertine from the Tivoli region of Italy and a pale honey-toned marble quarried from the mountains of Uzbekistan itself, a deliberate fusion, a symbolic statement. The Western world meeting the ancient East. modern precision meeting centuries of artisan tradition. The marble has been cut in large, floor-to-ceiling panels and finished to a surface so smooth it seems to repel dust, so reflective it carries faint images of the sky above and the garden below. At certain hours of the day, when the light falls at exactly the right angle, the facade appears almost luminous, as though the stone itself is generating warmth. The central pavilion rises to a height of almost 14 meters at its roofline, its vertical lines emphasized by pilasters of hand-carved stone that echo the columnar architecture of Timur's great reception halls, but filtered through a thoroughly modern lens, cleaner, more refined, stripped of ornamentation while retaining the dignity of that ancient architectural vocabulary. Above the primary entrance, a coffered portico projects outward on paired columns of dark verde Guatemala marble, their surfaces polished to a depth that makes them appear almost black, absorbing and reflecting light simultaneously. The coffered ceiling of the portico is itself a work of art, each coffer inlaid with hand-cut mosaic in the geometric tradition of Uzbek tile work, but executed in materials that have never been used for that purpose before: mother of pearl, onyx, and thin-sliced green malachite, arranged in patterns of such mathematical precision that they seem almost impossible to have been produced by human hands. The windows are a chapter unto themselves. Along the central pavilion, three-story arched windows of structural glass, frameless, seamless, vast, offer views directly into the soaring interior atrium beyond, and from the driveway, standing before the house, you can look through those windows and see the sky on the other side, through the rear elevation's matching glass walls, giving the building an almost impossible transparency, a sense that it has been designed not to dominate the landscape, but to become part of it, to allow the sky and the horizon to move through it unimpeded. It is an architectural gesture of extraordinary confidence. The flanking wings are where the full extent of the estate's footprint becomes apparent. Each wing is itself the size of a substantial luxury residence, and they extend from the main pavilion at a slight angle, not parallel, but gently spreading like a fan opening, so that the entire frontage, measured from the outermost edge of one wing to the other, spans a distance that requires a full panoramic view to comprehend. The wings are lower than the central pavilion, their rooflines capped with parapets of carved stone and, at regular intervals, decorative elements that draw directly from the geometric vocabulary of Uzbek architecture: star-shaped ornaments, interlocking arches, and what appear to be abstract interpretations of the famous Makarnas, the honeycomb vaulting that decorates the interiors of the region's greatest medieval mosques. Rendered here in solid stone and positioned against the open sky, running the full length of both wings at ground level, is a raised terrace of extraordinary width. It is not a balcony, and it is not a porch. It is something more generous than either: a proper outdoor living space in stone and timber and glass, furnished with bespoke outdoor seating designed specifically for this home and produced by a workshop in Milan that typically creates only interiors. The terrace flooring is the same Portuguese limestone as the forecourt, but here laid in a pattern of alternating widths that creates a subtle rhythm underfoot. The parapet walls are low enough to preserve the view across the grounds and topped with a continuous balustrade of hand-forged iron. Its design again derived from traditional Uzbek motifs, but with a contemporary fineness of line that makes it feel entirely of this moment. From the terrace, the gardens unfold in every direction with a scale and a complexity that rivals the great designed landscapes of Europe. The estate's garden architect, commissioned specifically for this project after working on private estates in the English countryside and the hills above Monaco, has created an environment that is simultaneously Persian in its formal geometry and entirely Central Asian in its planting palette and spirit. There are water features at multiple levels. There are sounds layered, so that from any point in the garden you can hear running water, but never identify exactly where it originates. There are walled garden rooms, each with its own character and function. There are alleys of clipped cypress that create long, dramatic vistas across the property. There are sections of wild planted meadow that soften the geometry with movement and color. There is an orchard of fruit trees chosen for their historical significance to the region. Pomegranates, mulberries, quinces, their gnarled forms beautiful in every season. And beyond the garden, in every direction, the landscape of Uzbekistan itself. Mountains in the distance, sky of an intensity that only exists at this latitude, the quality of light that has attracted artists and explorers and conquerors for 3,000 years. The estate does not compete with this landscape. It converses with it. It was designed to honor it. And standing on that terrace, looking outward, with the house at your back and the ancient earth stretching before you, the question rises again, quietly and with genuine force. Has any palace in the world managed to hold this particular conversation? The entrance hall is the kind of space that changes how you understand the word interior. It rises, and the only verb that serves is rises, to a height of 11 meters. The full 3 stories of the central pavilion opening into a single, undivided volume of air and light and architecture that produces, in every visitor who has entered it, an involuntary moment of stillness. This is not accidental. It was engineered. The proportions of the space, its width to its height to its depth, were calculated through iterative modeling to produce exactly this response. The architect, working in consultation with a spatial psychologist and a specialist in the acoustic properties of large residential volumes, spent 14 months refining these proportions before a single foundation was laid. The floor is a single field of white Calacatta Oro marble, its veining so perfectly book-matched across the entire expanse that the pattern appears deliberate, almost painted, rivers of gold and gray flowing from wall to wall in continuous, unbroken movement. The marble is 4 centimeters thick and set on a heated substrate, so that in winter its surface maintains a warmth that makes the act of walking across it barefoot, which in private moments is entirely the point, a quiet physical luxury in itself. The walls rise in panels of the same travertine used on the exterior, but here finished to a surface of extraordinary smoothness, their joints so fine as to be barely visible, creating the impression of continuous stone rising toward the ceiling. At intervals, the wall panels are interrupted by deep-set niches displaying objects of cultural and artistic significance. Ancient Uzbek ceramics, pieces of historical Silk Road metalwork, hand-knotted textiles of extraordinary age and beauty, each niche individually lit from above by apertures so precise that the light enters as a perfect, uninterrupted beam, directed by a lighting designer who has worked on the galleries of the Louvre and the Rijksmuseum. At the far end of the entrance hall, directly aligned with the central axis of the house and the forecourt beyond, a double staircase of breathtaking sculptural ambition sweeps upward to the first-floor gallery. It is not 2 staircases positioned side by side. It is one continuous statement, 2 flights of cantilevered Bianco Carrara marble steps, each step appearing to project from the wall without visible support, curving symmetrically outward from the upper landing and descending to the hall floor with an elegance that suggests not engineering but choreography. The handrails are of hand-forged bronze, their profiles formed through a process of hammering and shaping by a master metalsmith who spent 3 months on site completing them. Their surface neither polished to a mirror nor left rough, but finished to exactly the tone and texture that distinguishes handmade metalwork from anything produced mechanically. Above it all, suspended from the ceiling on a system of invisible tension cables, hangs the chandelier. To call it a chandelier is to underserve it. It is a sculptural installation of approximately 4,000 individually blown glass elements, each a slightly different shade within a palette moving from the deepest amber through warm gold to the palest champagne, arranged in a composition that from below suggests the form of a pomegranate, the fruit of paradise, the ancient symbol of abundance and fertility that appears throughout Uzbek art and decoration, its seeds rendered in light, glowing from within by LED sources of such precision and warmth that the effect is entirely organic, entirely alive. The installation took a team of 8 craftspeople 11 days to hang. Moving deeper into the house, through the entrance hall and into the formal reception rooms beyond, The architectural vocabulary shifts. It softens, it deepens. It becomes more intimately luxurious without surrendering any of its grandeur. The formal reception suite occupies the entire eastern wing at ground level, and it is designed for the kind of hospitality that has no Western equivalent. Gatherings that are simultaneously personal and ceremonial, that blend the warmth of family with the gravity of occasion. The first reception room is a space of formal symmetry and restrained opulence. Its ceiling is a custom plasterwork composition of extraordinary complexity, designed by a craftsman from the ancient Uzbek city of Khiva, whose family has been producing decorative plasterwork for 6 generations. The intricate geometric patterns of his tradition here enlarged and reinterpreted for a contemporary residential scale, executed in pure white gypsum and underlit by concealed coves that make the ceiling appear to float. The furniture is bespoke, produced in France, each piece requiring between 8 and 16 weeks of production time. The fabrics are silk and cashmere, their colors drawn from the palette of Uzbek tilework. Deep lapis blue, the precise terracotta of aged Bokhara brick, the golden ochre of Samarkand's sunlit stone. 2 fireplaces face each other across the length of the room, their surrounds carved from a single block of green empress marble each, their grates custom-made in black and steel, their mantelpieces designed to display objects that shift with the seasons and the occasions the room is dressed for. Beyond the formal reception room, a corridor of extraordinary atmosphere connects to the dining hall, and the corridor itself deserves acknowledgement, because in a house of this caliber, even the transition spaces are curated. The corridor walls are entirely given over to an installation of hand-painted tiles, not reproduction tiles, not mass-produced ceramics, but individual hand-painted pieces produced over a period of 8 months by a collective of master ceramic painters working from historical designs found in the great mosques of Samarkand and translated, carefully, reverently, into a residential scale and contemporary palette. The floor is dark, wide plank walnut, and the ceiling is low enough to create intimacy after the grandeur of the hall, a deliberate compression before the expansion that awaits. The dining hall is palatial in every honest sense of the word. The table seats 32, not 32 with crowding, 32 with space. Space for conversation, for service, for the kind of unhurried, expansive hospitality that defines the highest traditions of Uzbek culture, where the table is not merely a surface for food, but a place where time is honored, where guests are made to feel that this moment, this gathering, is the most important thing that has happened in this house. The chairs are upholstered in ivory leather of a quality so fine it is almost indistinguishable from fabric, and they are heavy, heavy enough to feel permanent, to feel like fixtures rather than furniture, to communicate, without a word being spoken, that whoever sits here has been given a seat of consequence. The ceiling of the dining hall is this room's supreme achievement. It is a shallow dome, not the full hemisphere of a mosque, but a wide, elliptical form that rises from pendentives at each corner and reaches its apex some 9 meters above the table center. The dome's interior surface is covered entirely in hand-applied, gold leaf-applied in the traditional Uzbek technique, but interrupted at regular intervals by circular medallions of hand-painted enamel depicting scenes from Uzbek legend and natural history. The simmer bird of Persian mythology, the horses of the Fergana Valley, the caravans of the ancient Silk Road. Each medallion framed in a border of hand-cut muqarnas that throw complex shadows across the gold ground as the light within the room shifts through the day and into evening. At night, when the table is set and the candles are lit and the chandeliers within the dome are dimmed to their lowest register, this ceiling becomes something otherworldly, warm, alive, ancient, and completely unique on Earth. The kitchen is where luxury takes on a different register. Not the luxury of display, but the luxury of absolute function, of the finest tools and materials deployed in the service of the most fundamental human pleasure, the preparation and sharing of food. This kitchen was designed by a studio that has fitted out the private yachts of European royalty and the penthouses of Manhattan's most demanding clients. Its footprint is that of an entire apartment in most of the world's great cities. It operates across 3 zones. The professional preparation kitchen, fitted with commercial-grade appliances from La Cornu and Gaggenau. Its surfaces of honed Pietra Serena stone, its ventilation invisible, and its storage of such depth and intelligence that every tool, every ingredient, every vessel has a precise and considered home. The family kitchen, warmer in material and atmosphere. Its island of thick butcher block timber scarred beautifully from years of working use. Its windows, looking out into a private kitchen garden where herbs and vegetables are grown specifically for the household. And the pastry kitchen, a separate, climate-controlled room of white marble and stainless steel where temperature and humidity are managed to the exactness that fine patisserie requires. The wine space that flows from the kitchen is a destination in its own right. Descending 3 steps into a room of hand-laid stone. Actual stone, quarried locally, unpolished, rough-surfaced. You enter a climate-controlled environment that holds approximately 4,000 bottles in a combination of traditional wooden racking and bespoke steel and glass display systems that allow the labels of the most exceptional bottles to be appreciated without removing them from their temperature-controlled positions. There is a tasting table in the room's center, made from a single slab of reclaimed oak recovered from an Uzbek farmhouse that was dismantled during the estate's construction. A quiet, deliberate act of preservation. And around it 6 chairs of distressed leather, their patina suggesting decades of use even though the room is newly created. This is a room for contemplation, for the quiet pleasure of choosing well, for the particular satisfaction of standing in a cool, stone-walled space with a glass of something extraordinary and feeling, very precisely, that life has been constructed with care. If the ground floor is designed for the world, for arrival, for reception, for the theater of social life at its most elevated, then the upper floors of this mansion are designed for the self, for the private luxury that has no audience, for the daily experience of inhabiting a space so beautiful and so considered that the act of simply moving through it becomes a form of pleasure. The principal bedroom suite occupies the entire upper floor of the central pavilion, and it is, without qualification, the most extraordinary private bedroom environment that has ever been conceived within the borders of Uzbekistan. It is not one room. It is a private residence within a residence, a sequence of connected spaces that unfold from one to the next with the logic and the pacing of a great piece of music, each movement distinct, each flowing naturally from the one before. The bedroom chamber itself is centered on a bed of custom design, a platform of solid walnut, its headboard a floor-to-ceiling composition of hand-embroidered silk panels in the ikat tradition of the Fergana Valley, each panel a slightly different pattern within a unified palette of deep indigo, aged gold, and the warmest possible ivory. The bed faces the full-height glass wall that forms the southern elevation of the suite, a wall not of conventional windows but of structural glass panels so large that from the bed, lying down, your entire field of vision is given over to the landscape beyond, the formal gardens in the foreground, the city in the middle distance, and on clear days, the mountains. There are no curtains. Instead, the glass itself responds, at the touch of a panel, or by the programmed rhythm of the home's intelligence system. It transitions from complete transparency through any degree of opacity to full privacy. Its privacy state adjustable from deepest blue to warm amber, depending on the light quality desired within the room. At the hour before sunrise, the system is programmed to begin a gradual transition from deep opacity to the palest translucency, allowing the first light of the Central Asian morning to enter the room so softly, so gradually, that the act of waking is itself luxurious. The dressing rooms are a world in their own right. There are 2, one for each inhabitant of the suite, and they have been designed not merely as storage solutions but as retail environments, as curated experiences of private luxury. The first is lined in bleached oak cabinetry of extraordinary craftsmanship, every drawer lined in suede, every hanging rail adjustable and illuminated from within, the central island a display surface of glass and polished stone above which the lighting, designed by the same specialist who handled the entrance hall, replicates the exact color temperature of natural north light, ensuring that every garment is seen in its truest tone. The second dressing room is darker, more dramatic, its walls paneled in smoked oak and deep navy lacquer, its lighting warmer and more theatrical. A space that feels not like a wardrobe, but like a private atelier, a room where dressing is understood as an art form and treated accordingly. The bathroom suite of the principal bedroom is the moment in any tour of this mansion where language begins to feel genuinely insufficient. Not because it is opulent in the crude, gilded sense that lesser luxury dwellings sometimes mistake for refinement, but because it has achieved something that very few residential bathrooms on Earth have managed. It has become a spa, a sanctuary, a philosophical statement about the relationship between architecture and well-being, executed with such precision and such restraint that every element, every surface, every fixture, every aperture of light has been chosen not for its cost, but for its effect on the human body and spirit that inhabit the space. The bathing room is centered on a freestanding tub carved from a single block of arabescado marble, white with gray and gold veining, so dramatic it appears almost painted, so large that two people may share it without awareness of each other's physical boundary, and so deep that immersion to the shoulder is possible. It stands upon a platform of dark-honed slate in the middle of a room whose floor is a mosaic of tiny hexagonal tiles in 3 tones of gray that creates a surface of subtle texture and extraordinary visual complexity. The room's far wall is entirely glazed, framing a private courtyard of absolute seclusion. Walls of clipped yew, a small pool of still water, a single pomegranate tree in a pot of antique terracotta, a composition designed to be viewed from the bath as a living painting, private and peaceful, requiring no engagement, but available for contemplation. The shower enclosure is a room within the room, entered through a frameless glass door into a space large enough to contain a teak-slatted bench, a rain shower of 220 jets calibrated for 3 different temperature zones of the body, a steam function of clinical precision, and a chromotherapy system that shifts the light through a full spectrum of color frequencies according to the desired physiological effect. The walls of the shower room are travertine, left rough, their surface retaining the texture of the quarry, an intentional choice, a decision to allow the hand of nature into the most refined space, to prevent the accumulation of perfection from becoming sterile. Descending now from the personal sanctuaries of the upper floors, moving deeper into the estate, not outward but downward, into the subterranean world that occupies the full footprint of the central pavilion and extends beneath both wings. We enter the realm of the mansion's private entertainment and wellness infrastructure, a sequence of spaces so comprehensive and so luxuriously executed that to describe them as amenities is to fundamentally mischaracterize what they represent. These are not features added to a home. They are destinations within it. The spa and wellness center of this estate covers an area that, if it existed independently, would rank among the finest private wellness facilities in Central Asia. It begins at the entrance, a lowered, stone-walled lobby of deep calm, its floor heated, its walls embedded with aromatic cedar panels whose fragrance is released by the warmth of the underfloor system, its lighting reduced to the amber glow of a handful of carefully positioned fixtures. From this lobby, the spa unfolds in 4 primary directions. To one side, the hammam, a traditional Uzbek and Turkish steam bath environment of extraordinary authenticity and beauty. The central chamber is entirely lined in hand-cut marble mosaic in a deep, warm palette. Terracotta, burgundy, gold, the darkest possible green. The colors of the hammams of medieval Bokhara, translated into a contemporary execution of flawless craftsmanship. The central platform is a slab of solid heated marble some 3 meters in diameter, its surface worn smooth by the hot stone massage treatments that take place upon it. The domed ceiling of the hammam chamber, a proper hemispherical dome of traditional construction, supported on pendentives and pierced at its apex by a star-shaped oculus of colored glass, through which the steam rises and the light descends in broken jewels of color across the marble below, is the kind of architectural achievement that makes you question the boundary between functional space and sacred space. To the other side of the spa lobby, the cryo and contrast therapy suite, a sequence of rooms in which temperature is the primary medium. A cryotherapy chamber lined in matte white ceramic that descends to temperatures inhospitable to anything but the most determined wellness discipline. Cold plunge pools of dark blue-tiled water maintained at a precise 6 degrees. A transition room of neutral temperature and neutral tone where the body re-equilibrates between extremes. And from there, back to the warmth of the hammam or the dry heat of the Finnish sauna, a room of Nordic austerity. Unadorned, fragrant timber walls, a stone heater of volcanic rock, and nothing else. No ornamentation, no luxury surface, just the clarity of function and the ancient pleasure of deep heat. The swimming pool of this estate is not a swimming pool in any sense that the phrase conventionally implies. It is an aquatic environment. It occupies its own dedicated pavilion, a structure attached to the main house by a glazed corridor of some 20 meters through which, at night, the blue glow of the water can be seen from the main entrance hall, a beacon of warmth in the building's lower register. The pool pavilion is designed as a contemporary interpretation of a traditional Uzbek courtyard. A high, open space capped with a roof of structural glass and timber that floods the interior with natural light by day and, at night, becomes a window onto a sky that in Uzbekistan is, away from the city, genuinely extraordinary in its depth and its density of stars. The pool itself is 40 meters in length and 10 meters wide, dimensions that move it firmly out of the category of recreational swimming and into the territory of athletic facility, of serious aquatic practice. Its water is maintained at 28 degrees year-round through a geothermal heating system that draws on the thermal properties of the land itself. The pool's lining is a deep, almost black navy blue chosen for the specific quality of light it creates on the water surface. Not the bright turquoise of resort pools, but something darker, more mysterious, more beautiful, like a lake carried indoors. At one end, a wall of floor-to-ceiling glass offers an uninterrupted view across the formal gardens, so that swimming the length of the pool means moving toward a horizon of green and sky. At the other end, a thermal cascade wall, a curtain of heated water sheeting across a surface of rough black granite, creates the sound of a waterfall contained within an architectural space, a natural sound that the pool pavilion's acoustics amplify and distribute until it permeates the entire environment. Surrounding the pool on 3 sides, a deck of teak, wide-planked, perfectly maintained, heated from below, holds furniture that would not be out of place in the finest beach club of the Côte d'Azur. Deep, cushioned daybeds large enough for 2, shade structures of canvas and bronze, side tables of hammered copper, and at the far end, a bar of honed black granite manned, when required, by household staff whose role includes the specific task of ensuring that at no moment during a guest's or resident's time in this environment do they need to move to acquire anything they desire. The private cinema occupies a space that required more acoustic engineering than any other room in the house. Its design began not with the question of what it should look like, but with the question of what it should sound like. Specifically, how to achieve the acoustic environment of a world-class commercial cinema within a domestic setting. In a basement room whose structural constraints would challenge any acoustic specialist. The solution involved floating the entire cinema room within the building, walls, floor, and ceiling mounted on isolation pads that prevent any vibration from entering or leaving the space, and lining every surface with combinations of acoustic materials chosen for their absorption and diffusion properties at specific frequencies. The result is a room of extraordinary sonic quality, a space where the soundtrack of a film inhabits the air around you with a completeness and a physicality that makes conventional domestic audio seem thin by comparison. There is an outdoor kitchen here, a professional installation in stainless steel and dark granite. Its grill a custom-built wood-fire design that operates on the same principle as the finest Argentinian asados, producing an intense, even heat that is managed with the same precision as anything happening in the professional kitchen below. There is a plunge pool of minimal design, small, deep, intensely cold, positioned at the terrace's eastern edge so that entry into it offers the disorienting pleasure of cold immersion with a view of the mountains. There is a fire table of polished concrete, its flame running the full length of the table's center, providing warmth against the cool of Uzbek evenings and a focal point around which conversations collect naturally, inevitably, as conversations always have around fire since the first humans sat together and looked upward at the sky, much like this on E. In each of the estate's 4 guest pavilions, independent residential structures within the grounds, connected to the main house by covered walkways, but entirely self-contained, each with its own entrance, its own bedroom suite, its own sitting room and kitchenette, its own private garden. The standard of finish and the quality of material replicates what would be considered the extraordinary in any other context. Here is the baseline. Here the guest who stays is offered a private environment that, in any city in the world, would constitute a luxury hotel suite of the highest category. Because this estate was designed by someone who understood that hospitality is not merely comfort. It is the communication of consideration, the physical expression of how much a person's presence is valued. The guest pavilions share a material palette with the main house, but each has a distinct character. One more intimate and warm, its palette of terracotta and aged timber. One more dramatic, its walls of darkened concrete and glass. One pastoral, its garden larger than the others and planted with a formality that makes it feel like a private park. And one, the most private of all, positioned at the farthest point of the estate from the main house, behind a wall of mature trees, accessible only from a path of irregular stone laid through a meadow, small and deliberately simple in its exterior, its luxury entirely internal, a retreat in the truest possible sense. For those who value solitude as the highest luxury, and they exist, and they know exactly who they are, this pavilion is the finest room in the estate. There is a moment when you have moved through all of this, through the gates and the forecourt, through the entrance hall and the reception rooms, through the dining hall and the kitchens, through the bedroom suites and the bathrooms, through the spa and the pool and the cinema and the garage, up to the rooftop and through the guest pavilions and back to stand, finally, in the garden as the sun reaches its late position and the stone of the facade takes on the gold of the evening. There is a moment when the question at the heart of this experience reasserts itself with a force that feels almost physical. Could any palace compare to this? The Alhambra of Granada, with its waterways and its starlight ceilings, its 8 centuries of Islamic geometrical perfection. It is extraordinary, but it is a monument, a museum, a relic preserved behind glass and rope barriers, a place where you may look but not touch, where you may admire but not inhabit. This house in Uzbekistan you may inhabit. Its luxury is not historical, it is immediate. The Palace of Versailles, with its hall of mirrors and its gardens of absolute symmetry, its fountains playing on the hour for crowds of 1,000 people at a time. It is magnificent, but it is public. The most intimate room in Versailles has been seen by millions of strangers. This house offers something that Versailles can never offer: privacy. Absolute, complete, deliberate privacy. The privacy of living in magnificence without witnesses, of beauty that exists for your own experience rather than for the world's. This house, this extraordinary private estate standing in the landscape of Uzbekistan, is that kind of architecture. It is shaped by memory, by the memory of the Silk Road, by the artistic traditions of Samarkand and Bokhara, by the geometric genius of Islamic design, by the deep Uzbek understanding that beauty is not decoration but necessity, that a home is not merely a shelter, but a statement about what a life has been made of and what it is intended to become. And it is shaped by imagination, by the specific, uncompromising, entirely individual imagination of the person who looked at an empty piece of land in one of the world's most historically magnificent countries and chose to build not a house, but a legacy. A legacy that will outlast its creator. A legacy that will be lived in by generations who have not yet been born, who will walk through this entrance hall and look up at that chandelier and feel, as you have felt today, the involuntary stillness of encountering something that transcends its function and becomes simply art, a legacy that will be studied by architects, written about by critics, visited by those few to whom access is granted, and spoken of by those who have seen it in the specific, reverent tone that human beings reserve for the very few things on earth that they understand to be without equivalent. So we return, one final time, to the question that has accompanied us through every room of this estate, that has risen at every gate and every threshold and every view. The question that this house, in its totality, poses to every palace and every mansion and every royal residence on earth. Could any of them, truly, in the fullest and most honest assessment, compare to this? Perhaps that question is precisely what this house was built to make you ask. And perhaps the fact that you are still asking it, even now, even as the golden light of a Uzbek evening falls across the marble of the forecourt and the fountain turns its silk of water in the cooling air, perhaps that is the answer.